Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the installment of Scott Selections here for Friday, March 26th. We're getting today's play of the day. Quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up a push with Western Kentucky and Louisiana Tech under 137 and minus 110 on Bet Online. Pretty disgusting push overall. Game ended up having about 29 points in the first 5 minutes before the pace completely slowed down like I thought it would. Ended up landing exactly 137, mostly because Louisiana Tech ended up going 11 for 18 from the three-point line. So if Louisiana Tech shot anywhere worse from three, that would have been a nice, easy winner. But instead, we end up getting a push, which is still better than a loss. But either way, I'm sure a lot of you would rather actually make money than get refunded. But either way, we'll look for a winner here on Friday. However, looking at the card, wasn't really a big fan of anything. The NBA is particularly tough, especially around the trade deadline. I know it officially passed, but with all the trades and all the people, especially with COVID, who might play, might not play, I don't want to gamble on injury reports. So for that reason, we're going to skip the NBA for Friday. So instead, we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be looking at a look-ahead line for one of the Sweet 16 matchups taking place on Saturday, and that's going to be in a matchup between Syracuse and Houston. That'll be taking place at around 9:55 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. And for the play of the day, we're going to be taking the Orange here as the underdogs, +7 at minus 110 on BetMGM. The time recording of 3:27 a.m. Eastern Time. This line is mostly available at around 6.5. However, BetMGM does have 7. So I'll take the free half point for no additional juice. But looking at the reasons why I like Syracuse, first of all, even though Houston has been the better seed because it is the number 2 seed in the region, Syracuse has definitely looked a lot more comfortable in the first 2 rounds. Syracuse ended up destroying San Diego State in an upset in the first game, really looked dominant on both sides of the ball. And then in the second game, ended up beating West Virginia. In those games, Syracuse was the underdog both times. Won each of those 2 games outright despite being 3+ point dogs, and now it is getting 7, which I simply think is way too many points in this spot. Main reason why Syracuse's run is still, I'd say, going on for a Cinderella run is because of the fact that the defense has been fantastic. The defense was an issue during the regular season, but it definitely has worked itself into form late, and Syracuse ended up forcing San Diego State and West Virginia to shoot less than 38% from the floor in both of those games. So Syracuse's defense has been the main reason why this team has been successful. And, of course, Buddy Boeheim has been absolutely ridiculous from beyond the arc. And Gerard has also been really good as well. But looking at some really fun historical trends here, Jim Boeheim with Syracuse as a double-digit seed in the NCAA tournament is 9-2 straight up. So this team not only covers as double-digit seeds, this team tends to go on massive runs. And I simply think that Houston, despite being the better seed, really should not be laying 7, especially after that awful performance against Rutgers in the second round. Houston probably should have lost the game, ended up needing a 14-2 run in the final 4:55 in order to beat Rutgers by 4 points. And Houston, if you watch the game offensively, they were all out of sorts. And I know Rutgers is a solid defensive team, but now that they face off against a very unique defense in the 2-3 zone, the Syracuse runs, and I simply think that Syracuse should do a very good job of really creating havoc like they did against West Virginia and San Diego State, and I do think Houston will struggle from behind the arc like it did against Syracuse. Looking at some other injury news for Houston, their best player, or one of their best players in Dejan Giroux, is probable with a hip injury. Now, according to Sports Illustrated, he should be around 70 to 75%. If you watched him in the Rutgers game, he really couldn't move. He ended up having a great game, but he was constantly just hunched over, grabbing his hip, taking medical timeouts because he really just couldn't stand. And I am curious if, even though he's projected to play, if he's really going to be anywhere near 100%, and I assume he's not going to because that hip injury did look like it was a pretty serious injury based on how he was reacting to it against Rutgers. And other than that, though, Houston's leading scorer, guard Quentin Grimes, ended up hurting his forearm late in the Rutgers game. Now, he ended up playing, hit a couple of big shots late, so it's not going to be that big of a deal, but definitely is worth monitoring, especially if Houston's going to require him to shoot a bunch of threes. I am curious how his form's going to hold up, potentially with some contact, maybe an and one, maybe hits the ground. I'm not sure if his forearm is going to linger based on the issues, but that's definitely worth monitoring. But Houston, 2 of their best 3 players are currently dealing with a little bit of injury issues. Giroux's, of course, being a lot more serious, but Syracuse is still significantly healthier in this matchup. But at the end of the day, is Houston going to win the game? If it is going to, it definitely needs to pound the boards because Syracuse's 2-3 zone, of course, leaves it vulnerable to some rebounds, and that is what Houston is very good at. Houston is a phenomenal rebounding team. But based on how Syracuse has played defensively and the unique look at the zone, plus with Boeheim and that backcourt, I think Syracuse and Boeheim getting 7 points is way too many. I think this line should probably be closer to around 4.5, maybe even less than that. But Syracuse, I'm sure, is going to be a popular pick to win the game outright. But instead of doing all that, I think if Houston's going to win this game, And if they can only beat Rutgers by 3, this game should come down to the wire, be a nail-biter throughout. It should be a great game. But if you're getting 7 in a game that should be pretty close, I simply think that's too good of a deal to pass. So the play of the day, once again, here for Friday, March 26th, is going to be on Syracuse, plus the 7 at -110 on BetMGM. That's been Solomon Scott talking. Go to all of you in respective best today. Bye, everyone.